Well, hello and good evening. I'm John Mark Dempsey, and this is a program that we do called Talk of the Town, and we have done this for quite some time in commerce and with the radio television program here, and kind of bringing it back. And we're glad to be coming to you once again with Talk of the Town. And our guest, our first guest on this program this evening, is Kim Saenz, and Kim is the director of the Hunt Regional Emergency Center, not only in Commerce, but also in Quinlan.
Hello.
Keep you busy running back and forth up and down the highway.
That's right. Keeps me out of trouble.
Well, I don't know about that. In fact, I suspect the opposite. But anyway, thanks for taking the time.
Thank you.
Come to talk to us. So Kim and I talk a good deal on KETR, another program that we do, and I know that flu has been bad this year, but not quite as bad now as it was.
We have seen it. We do believe it's peaked, so hopefully we will see a decrease in the numbers. We get a flu report weekly from the CDC. They still rate the flu as widespread, but not as many new cases. So hopefully we have peaked and we'll see a downturn of it.
I saw a story where the type of flu was changing in mid-season. There was a new type of flu that they were starting to see.
We have seen A and B, and one was earlier, and then we saw a resurgence of the second one, and so we've seen patients with both A and B, which you typically, that's not common. So we've seen a lot of odd things this year. So.
What's the busiest day you've had in Commerce with flu cases?
We had a high census of like 56, which is about twice what we should really normally be seeing. They weren't all flu cases, but a large number were.
And it's been even more so in Quinlan and Greenville?
Yes. Greenville has had some high census days up into the 140s. And
wow.
Yes, and then Quinlan has been up into the 80s. So,
really?
And those aren't all flu, but it's a large number contribute to that.
Yeah. So when you say 56 one day in Commerce, that a lot of those were flu cases, but some other things as well were included in that stuff.
Right.
So what's a typical day like? Typical number that you might have in Commerce on an average day?
Our average census is about 30, generally.
Just one thing and another.
So we see everything.
Yeah. So flu, as far as that's concerned, we probably are still going to be seeing flu cases well into the spring.
We do, and last year we did see occasional flu cases through the summer. Typically it's a 20-week period that they focus on from October 1st through March 1st. So hopefully we're getting towards the end of it, but again, it's been a bad season, so it may last a little bit longer.
Why has it been so bad?
There's several reasons that they contribute. A decreased number of people taking the flu shot, and so that is obviously an increased number. And then younger people are typically the more active, so they spread those throughout the school. We've seen several school closings in the area, so. And just a bad year for it. It's been pretty virulent this year, so we've just had a lot of cases.
Why do fewer people take the flu shot? Is it because we hear that, well, the flu is only 10% effective, or is that a major reason, or is there something else?
I think it is. It contributes. The media is not always supportive of the flu shot. There is a population that feels like it causes the flu, which it does not. It's not a live virus. Ideally, probably those people had a viral illness that was starting and then they got the vaccine, and so they attribute it to the flu shot, which, again, it's not a live vaccine. So that, and people often don't like to have suggestions made to them for their health, so some people just don't want to take it.
Yeah, but now I'm guessing there's still time to take the shot, and maybe you would still even now advise people who haven't had the shot to go ahead and take it.
Right. The CDC does recommend, since it has been such a bad year, if you do come into contact with it, it would provide you some immunity. And you had asked me the question about how long it takes to get immunity, and it's about 2 weeks. So we are getting towards the end of the season, but if you haven't had it, it would be worth considering.
Yeah, I mean, you've told me that if you did get the flu, we hear it's only 10% effective, but if you did get it, it would help in reducing the severity of the symptoms.
That's right. And we have seen a large number of patients that had minor, less serious symptoms, a lower degree of temperature, less days of illness, and then we've seen people who've had 5 to 7 days course of it this year, and those are the ones that did not take the shot.
Let's talk about the emergency center itself, and I think most people who live in Commerce are very well aware of where the emergency center is, opened in 2015, 3 years ago. And right there on Highway 24, as you come into town from the south, really couldn't be a better location, could it?
Right, it's easily accessible, and we have a great location thanks to the college. So,
And the reason that's worth commenting on, I think, is you remember the old hospital in Commerce, which was not in a good location, was very hard to find.
right, it was in a residential area,
Yeah.
and if you were traveling from out of town or just passing through, the likelihood of you finding it was not high.
You might see a sign that might direct you to the general area of it, but very difficult to find there on Sterling Hart Drive, and as you say, in a residential area. But this is right on the main highway coming into
Yes.
town. Now that was supposedly a full-service hospital, but I don't know how many people actually used it in that way. Most people probably used it as an emergency facility primarily. Wasn't that so?
The older facility?
Yeah.
Well, I think that earlier in time that it did serve its purpose and had a higher number of inpatients, I believe. Towards the end, the facility had gotten older, and we just didn't have a very high daily census to be able to support a full hospital staff.
Yeah.
But this
So-
area needed emergent care, and to have some portion in this area of the county was really important.
Right. So your facility now is specifically for emergency care, although you do have some other services there besides emergency care.
Right. We have an outpatient lab and outpatient radiology, so we operate that Monday through Friday.
What about the staff? How many folks working at the emergency center in Commerce?
Staff-wise, I think we have about 50 people. So nurses, we have a set matrix depending on how many patients that we have. So generally 2 RNs at a time, and then a third during the peak hours. And then we have respiratory therapy, and we have labs, lab employees, and x-ray and registration people, and security.
You said 50?
About 50 total, probably with everyone.
And those are full-time?
Oh, I would have, I can't speak.
Not
We have
necessarily
some
all full-time.
PRNs, so I don't know the exact number of that.
And how many physicians on staff?
We have a contracted service with M-Care to provide our medical care, and so they have about a pool of 12 physicians that cover each month.
Many A&M Commerce students who come to that facility, because we do have a campus medical facility as well. So how
Right.
many A&M Commerce students do you see at the emergency center?
They do a great job of taking care of the kids here, and so honestly, we don't see a lot. We do see on occasion someone who would need an x-ray or a CT. We've seen a few student athletes. So all in all, college students are pretty healthy. So
Yeah. I think, though, that's a positive thing. I'm sure a lot of parents that bring kids to Commerce are relieved or are comforted by seeing that emergency center sitting right there on the edge of
that's
the
right.
campus,
Yeah.
basically. And you have you told me one time that you have quite a few people that come to the emergency center here who are not from Commerce.
Right. We see people from the Sulphur Springs area. We have quite a few patients from there. We get from Wolf City, Cumbie, Cooper, all kinds of local places around here that will come to us.
And before the emergency center in Commerce opened, and then about a year later, the one in Quinlan opened.
Yes.
The only emergency center really, well, Commerce, of course, the old hospital, I suppose, but pretty much all of the burden was on the facility in Greenville.
Yes. And we're kind of landlocked there. There's only so much area that you can have, and so it was pretty tight on beds. So this was part of the strategic plan to spread out the patients, provide a little better service and timely care for emergencies.
And the facility in Commerce and facility in Quinlan have taken a lot of pressure off the main hospital in Greenville then, as far as
Yes.
emergency.
Yes, they have. So their length of stays are down, and so that's something that's really important because time's valuable to people, and if you have an injured or ill family member, it's not ideal to have to wait.
Yeah. I sent you an article, this was from Australia. So it's not from nearby in Texas or even in the United States, but the article was about the problem they're having there with violence in the emergency rooms. And it seems like, obviously we've been horrified by the story out of Florida with the school shooting a week or so ago. But this is a problem in emergency rooms, not in the same way that the school shooting was, but you deal with this. And the story out of Australia was common, or it was similar to the kind of thing that you do encounter here.
It is. It's an unfortunate reality of today. We deal with people during a very stressful time in their life, whether it's a loss of a loved one or a serious accident. That causes a lot of stress for people. We also deal with people with underlying mental health issues. The ERs have become the safety net for that. Texas struggles with payment sources, and so sometimes we hold behavioral health patients for a period of time in the ER, and that's just not ideal, but we have to do the best we can, and so that causes stress. And also there's organic illnesses that can contribute to that. If you have an older patient with dementia or problems with their medications, that can cause confusion or agitation. And some medical conditions, dehydration, brain injuries, brain tumors, those kind of things can cause aggressive behavior. So each situation's a little bit different. And then we have the substance abuse issues that probably is the highest risk.
So you're dealing with people, in some cases, the worst moment of their lives or close to it.
Yes.
Yeah, very often.
It is. It's a very stressful environment.
But the state had recently, not too long ago, there was a law passed that is supposed to help you deal with this.
Right. Governor Perry did sign a bill, and it is now a Class 3 felony to assault an emergency healthcare worker. So that has given a little more backing to this. And it's not always been supported by, as nurses, you know, we tend to think that's part of our job, but when in all actuality, it's really not. And no one should be abused or feel like they're unsafe. And it's just not the nursing staff or the medical staff. We have to think about the safety of the patients, the visitors. So there's a lot of onus on us to make sure that everyone's safe.
Do you see a lot of people who come to the emergency room who probably shouldn't be in the emergency room? In other words, their situation doesn't warrant coming to the emergency room.
Right. We do see patients that aren't considered emergent. And emergent, the general definition would be impending death within an hour. So yes, a large number of patients aren't emergent, but do require some extensive testing, or for some reason aren't able to get into their doctor. And so yes, we see all kinds of patients.
If someone broke a leg, that would that be a...
Yes, that's urgent. So
urgent at least, not emergent.
Right. So your emergent situations would be seizures, strokes, heart attacks, pulmonary edema, shortness of breath. So urgent patients do belong in the ER as well. So.
How long have you been with Hunt Regional?
27 years.
27 years. You started out as an emergency room nurse?
No, sir. I started out on a surgical unit.
Yeah. And when did you get into emergency care?
About 2 years later.
It's a long time in emergency care.
Long time.
You've seen it all, haven't you?
I've seen a lot.
Yeah, I bet you have.
Yeah.
Just about. We're out of time.
Okay.
But it's great to talk to you. Kim Saenz is the director of the Hunt Regional Emergency Center in Commerce and in Quinlan. She's going back and forth all the time, if you can imagine that. Thanks for sitting down with us.
Thank you.
Kim Saenz, and we're going to be talking with Charlie Alderman, the superintendent of the Commerce ISD, next on Talk of the Town.